What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the college basketball tournament betting preview, part 2. We're going to be previewing Friday's games. I'm Stuckey. Joining me are my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Mike Calabrese and Tanner McGrath. If you haven't checked out the Thursday episode already, make sure you do so. I promise this one will be quicker. Got a little too excited rambling about the Thursday games. But excited to jump in to Friday. I got my, hopefully my worst bet of the tournament out of the way with San Diego State. That was a sad effort. I mean,
ugly.
It doesn't, the defensive game plan was bizarre. I get that North Carolina shot lights out from three. They were going to win if they did that, but to lose how they did, that was pretty stunning. So, yeah, I can. What are your guys' thoughts right now on the card for Thursday and Friday? I can honestly say this is one of the tougher first round cards, in my opinion, that I can ever remember. I mean, obviously the market gets more efficient as years go on, but there's so many sides that I like that have caveats. There's a lot of injury uncertainty, and the margins are already thin. We know a lot of who these teams are by this point in the year. And then there's the travel curveballs for Yale tomorrow, for VCU and how they want to play in the altitude. I'm really disappointed that a lot of these teams that I liked got shipped out to Denver after playing on Sunday to altitude, which just throws a little curveball in there. And then there's a bunch of teams just with injury uncertainty, who's going to play and how much. So this is a tough first round slate. I could see myself got to have action all day Thursday and Friday. You can have some first to 10 bets, some round robins, but pregame maybe only 4 or 5 a day.
Couple of good live betting games.
What's that?
So a couple of good live betting games, just based on hot 3-point.
I also think there's a couple games that we'll talk about some today that are going to be based on the whistle that gets blown, which is going to have a huge impact. But I'm looking at the projected potential second, third, and fourth rounds. I feel like I'm going to have many more bets after the first 2 days, but got to find ways to have action the first days. It's the best 2 betting days of the year. So let's get into it, try to find some winners. Obviously, tons of contests out there, brackets too. We'll try to touch on all of that. Well, I guess I should ask. What are your general thoughts on the first 2 days, Tanner? I'll start with you.
I'm just firing away like I normally do. I like capping non-conference matchups more than I like capping in conference. I think the conference familiarity usually throws off my process. So I usually get more comfortable around this time of year. So, I mean, it is a tough first few days, but not too tough to not bet it and enjoy it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Calabrese, how about you? How are you feeling?
I kind of enjoy doing the gut reaction show, hours after the brackets released, and then digging in and walking myself back off of certain bets or doubling down, having more conviction. It's fun, at least just from a handicapping exercise perspective, to get into it. One of the ones I'll get into in this show, I really like St. Mary's the entire season, and looking at Vanderbilt, my lean was with Mary's right away, but you start to talk about the travel, and then I was like, well, let me see if I can pull some comps for Vandy in the last 2 months in SEC play. And then you look how they did against Tennessee and winning at A&M. And it's two teams that can really play great defense and want to slow down the tempo a little bit. It's maybe this is more of a lean, or maybe I'm talking myself into a Vandy play. So I really enjoyed the way that this week plays out, because it really gives you the time to put in the love and dedication to the handicap. And then the other part of it is I like a lot of the dogs not to win outright, but to cover. So just kind of looking at my card, we all do this where you start to lock in some plays early in the week, and then you say to yourself, 75% dogs here. That can't be right. And so you start to get in your head a little bit. I can't wait for these games to finally start, because I've had enough with the second guessing at this point. But overall, it's the same kind of magical feeling night before Christmas vibes right before that Thursday first game tips.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the splits too much. I mean, historically, the public bets or whatever, they haven't done well in the tournament. But last year, they went public bets went 46-20 or something. Ebbs and flows. There's going to be square sides that win, square sides that lose. All right, let's get started. Let's jump into the games. Baylor Mississippi State kicks things off 12:15 Eastern on CBS. Mississippi State's a 1.5 point favorite, total 144.5. This game is in Raleigh. I've gone back. You don't talk about going back and forth. Luckily, I don't think either one of these teams beats Duke. So, bracket perspective, like, it doesn't really matter that much. But for some contests where like I have points-based picks, I don't know who I'm going to pick in this game, and I kind of want to have action on it because it's the first game. Might throw something around them. I'll go back a million times. So Baylor, like, they've had injuries this year, and they're still without one of their starting bigs. And they had some other injuries, so like it cloudies their profile a little bit. But if you just look, they're a paper tiger. I mean, like, there's a reason they're dead last in Haslametrics paper tiger factor. They're 69th overall against top 50 teams. Their defense is 160th. They're also 358th away from home. Mississippi State's on the opposite end of that spectrum. We're decent away from home compared to their home metrics. They don't grade out as a paper tiger. But there's a lot of differing things at play here. I mean, you put Matthews on Edgeboost. Mississippi State's also playing faster down the stretch for what it's worth. But the way that I look at this game is both teams do a good job of generating points off steals, but both defenses excel in that department, not allowing it. Both teams excel in generated second chance opportunities, but I think Mississippi State's defense is going to be a little bit better in that regard. Mississippi State gives up a ton of threes by design, but this isn't an elite Baylor shooting team, but maybe they break out of their slump. They're 30% from three since February 1st. Meanwhile, Mississippi State chucks up too many threes for a team that can't shoot, but they also want to get to the rim. Baylor doesn't let you get to the rim. When you do, you can score, though, but they're number one in near proximity attempt rate allowed. I ultimately think this will be a half-court game. Baylor doesn't allow anything in transition. But there's so many different things at play. Like, Baylor's a bad catch-and-shoot defense, but Mississippi State hard catch-and-shoot offense. I think ultimately if this is like a half-court game, I would trust Baylor's shot-making a little bit more. But I think Mississippi State's going to have a little bit more success on the offensive glass, and they do have a matchup for Edgeboost. Maybe this just comes down to Hubbard. Does he just go crazy? But the trump card might be the Baylor zone, and that might ultimately be the difference. Where Miss State graded out well versus zone, or decently, like 70th percentile per synergy. But half their zone, they don't see a ton of zone in the SEC. Half their zone possessions came against Central Michigan and Prairie View. So, like, who cares? So, at the end, all that to say, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning the Baylor zone, preventing Mississippi State from running its offense and getting to the rim, and then trusting Baylor shot makers a little bit more. But I don't know if I trust Baylor all the way. Tanner, what do you say?
I like Baylor. I'll try and talk you into Baylor here. I took Baylor plus 1.5. I think you can get +2 out there, which I think is good considering I think all the projections make Baylor a one possession favorite here. So I've always liked Chris Jan's aggressive overhelp ball screen defense. I think it's good at denying the dribble, denying the rim. The problem is that it really hasn't been all that good lately. Over their past 6 or 7 games or so, Missouri, Arkansas, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma all approached or cracked the 1 point per possession mark in ball screen creation. The Bulldogs have allowed 32 paint points per game over the past 5, which is 6 points higher than their season average. It ranks below average nationally. And that over-aggressive dribble denial defense still allows a lot of those catch and shoot and off the dribble jumpers. And so that's where the Baylor shot making comes in, which I know that you would trust more, Stuck. I do as well. Baylor runs that kind of spread pick and roll offense. It's typically good in dribble creation, and I think they can shoot. I don't think the numbers bear that out because, as you mentioned, they've been shorthanded for parts of the year. They haven't had all their shooters in the court at the same time. But like the shot quality data on this team is very high in their spacing, shot making qualities, off the dribble, catch and shoot threes. I think the Baylor offense might be a tad undervalued, and I think they can work here. And actually, the big matchup I'm looking for is for Norchad Omier to work off the roll here and mismatch him against Keyshawn Murphy. I think that's a good offensive matchup and something that Baylor can exploit. On the other end of the court, It's all Hubbard in dribble and ball screen creation, but I do think Baylor can defend those actions. On the whole, this season, 0.71 points per possession allowed, 84th percentile. And they have, 4 or 5 bigger guards who I think could swallow up the smaller Hubbard and just kind of throw bodies at him. Yes, I'm worried about Baylor on the boards, but I don't think it's a dire issue. And if this game does come down to a half-court game, which I also expect it to, I think Baylor will just operate more efficiently in the half court across 40 minutes, granted that they do hit shots. So I took 2 points with Baylor. I like the Bears.
Mike, I know you're passing. Do you have like a quick 1 or 2 sentences on this game?
Yeah, I'm passing for some of the reasons that you listed out. The paper tiger factor from Haslametrics, they're bottom 4 in this field in terms of the Evan Mia opponent adjust metric in the same conversation with Utah State and Texas. Yuck. And then Mississippi State, to go 2-5 down the stretch, 2 of those wins coming against LSU. And Hubbard scored a lot, but he wasn't efficient. He was shooting 37% during that rough stretch to finish the season. I just don't really have faith in either of these teams, so I'm just going to pass. Plenty on the table on Friday to go with otherwise.
All right, 12:40 Eastern in Cleveland on True TV. We have Robert Morris taking on Alabama. Alabama 23.5 point favorite. Total 165.5. One of these sky-high Alabama totals. Mike, you want to make a case for Bobby Moe?
So in the first round of the NCAA tournament, Nate Oates is 1-3 against the spread. Didn't look to blow out low majors like Iona or Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Andy Toole has coached against him twice when he was at Buffalo. They split those 2 games. Toole also took a 15 seed in the NCAA tournament, took the number 2 seed Nova to overtime. So he has a little bit of experience to lean on. But really, this comes down to Grant Nelson is probably going to sit, or at the very least be on a serious minutes restrictions. If you listen in to what Oates had to say, they have visions of getting to the Final Four. This is not a game that they're going to really sweat in the second half, at least in my opinion. But without Nelson, you look at the stretch 4 from Spain. Hopefully, I'll get his name right. Alvaro Folgarias. Close enough. He's got a phenomenal nickname, El Pulpo Fol, which is the octopus. And the reason for that is he can do so many things. He can stuff the stat sheet in so many different ways. Namely, he can knock down threes 42.3% on the year. If Nelson's not there and they go to other bigs, I think there's a potential for Bobby Moe to spread them out a little bit. And then I'm just looking for some 3-point variance to go my way. When they played against faster teams, and I know that everyone's slower compared to Alabama, but at least in the horizon, Fort Wayne and Youngstown, they played really fast. They split with both of them, and in the second game, you could see schematically they learned things because they held the Penguins and the Macedons to 69 and 70 points, respectively, in the second game. I think this is just going to play to form with Oates already looking to the round of 32. 23.5 is a little rich, in my opinion, if Bobby Moe can hit 8 or 9 threes in this game. I think they can hang around a little bit, and the headspace is on the next round for the Crimson Tide. So I'm going to go with the 15 seed here.
Yeah, I'll probably be on Bobby Moe. I'm waiting to see how high this line gets. I do show a little bit of value on them. I think they have a horrendous pick and roll offense, though, which is how you want to attack Alabama. But there's paths here to score enough points. Alabama's defense isn't great. They can get offensive rebounds. They can get to the line. And then you mentioned their bigs can shoot, and especially if Nelson isn't out there, I think that can be a bit problematic. And, they have good rim protection. And what does that mean? I mean, I'm sure Bama's going to get to the rim and they're going to finish. That means they can guard the 3 well. And that's would be your biggest fear in this game, is that just Bama going bananas from 3. And they're going to blow out good teams, yet alone, a Horizon team if that happens. So they can potentially limit the damage. I'm afraid they might get just cooked in transition, and the athletic and talent gap is pretty big. But I'm showing a little value on Robert Morris. I just think that this team continues to be undervalued by the market. It's one of those teams that started over. It was like a brand new team. And their only high major they played was West Virginia. They got destroyed, but it was the first game of the year for a brand new team. So I don't really, and it was a healthy West Virginia team. I don't really take too much from that. And, they've really come together over the past 2 months. And they finished 16-1 straight up and against the spread. So, yeah, I think at 23.5, it's Bobby Moe or nothing. But Alabama, too much talent to be threatened here for a potential upset. But I just think they can get enough buckets against this Alabama defense, and then at least limit the amount of 3-point attempts that go up, which I think would be helpful to just staying within, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. All right, let's move on to Milwaukee for a 1:30 Eastern tip between Lipscomb and Iowa State. Iowa State 14.5, 15-point favorite. Total 143.5. The more I dig into this game, I think it could be. There was a potential that this could be a sneaky under. I mean, Lipscomb won't get any offensive rebounds. They get back in transition. That's why they don't get offensive rebounds. One of the reasons. They don't foul. They take care of the ball well. And I think their offense will just get blown up. Like, I don't think Iowa State's going to let them run the offense they want to run. So I think they're just going to end up taking bad shots. But I think the loss of Gilbert hurts more defensively than it does offensively. How much? I don't know. Like, Iowa State's a hard team to profile. Like, I know who they are at full strength. But when they're not, like, it's hard to figure out all the moving pieces and how good they are and everything that's going on. How healthy is Lipsy? It is worth noting Lipscomb shot 39% from three at home, only 34% away from home. Iowa State, 39% at home, 33% away. So both these teams shot so much better at home. Lipscomb doesn't want to go near the rim, 328th in near proximity attempt rate. Iowa State doesn't let you go near the rim, so that's a good thing. But Lipscomb doesn't have any rim protection. I think Iowa State can just dominate them in the post athletically. I just think most importantly, I think Lipscomb, their offense is going to get blown up here, like with the pressure of Iowa State, and they're not going to be able to run anything that they do run. It's a beautiful motion offense. They have shooters all over. They're going to have to make threes in this game. I don't envision them scoring many other ways. And they can shoot, but I think this is going to be a tough task. If Iowa State is at full strength, I'd be laying in here. I still lean Iowa State. Mike, I know you like Lipscomb, and you're going to make a case for the Bisons.
Yeah, I just really can't get over the fact that without Gilbert, you think back to that game against Oklahoma State, they scored just 68 points, losing Curtis Jones off of the bench. He's the best sixth man in the country. He was a shot in the arm every time that he came onto the floor. They really didn't have these big drop-offs. Now with him playing starter minutes, shrinking the bench a little bit, I'm not enamored with this team without them being full strength, which is a shame because I probably would have had them winning this region and going to the Final Four if they had a full deck, but they don't. And yeah, there's lots of little things to like about Lipscomb. They never foul. So Iowa State's going to have to prove to me for 40 minutes that they can run their offense and not go through lulls without getting bailed out with fouls. They allow the fourth lowest assist to made basket ratio, which essentially is going to, I think, put them into some situations where it's just Curtis Jones going one-on-one. And so, they're going to have advantages in these one-on-one matchups, but I still think the way that Lipscomb plays their defense, it's not going to be a layup line. It's not going to be wide open cutters getting to the basket. So then it becomes a three-point shooting competition in terms of covering the spread. Can Lipscomb get to 8 or 9 threes? I appreciate that you threw out the splits in terms of the home and away. 34% is still pretty decent. It was good enough for them to cover on the road at Arkansas earlier this season, a team that athletically had way more and brought way more to the table than the Bison do. But I just view this as an opportunity to play one of the lower seeds here in Lipscomb. I think they're going to hang around. I like Agnisovic. I think he, even though they don't get a ton of buckets at the rim, he has some post moves. They'll feed him a little bit. We'll see if that's useful at all in terms of the matchup and the height that he's going to face. But if he can go ahead and play the way even close that he did this season in conference play, he was conference player of the year quality really the whole time. So I think they have a good spread between him on the low block and the shooters on the perimeter. Not to win this one outright, but 15 seems a little bit rich for an Iowa State team that is going to have to be working it out on the fly. I know they have some experience without Gilbert, but I just feel like they're handicapped in that regard.
Tanner, do you want to break the tie?
Yeah, Breeze, you want to do a little T-shirt bet for this one?
Of course. Iowa State, I'm on the bandwagon the whole year. I get off. What could go wrong now? And couldn't possibly win by 35 points in this game.
I'm on the Clones. Yeah, I laid 14. I like it up to 15. On the surface, you look at it, you say Lipscomb's, pretty 4-out motion-based offense, perfect for beating Iowa State's ball screen blitz defense. They're loaded with shooting and spacing. They can work around the blitz. They can find those weak side catch and shoot jumpers that Iowa State allows. The problem is that the theory doesn't really work in reality when it's a motion-based offense facing a low major motion-based offense facing a swarming over-athletic power 4 defense. Iowa State's on-ball pressure, switches, hedges, blitzes, probably won't even let Lipscomb get into their sets. Like Stuckey said, I envision the Bison spending most of their time messing around in the half court, trying to initiate their actions, and then likely generating a low quality end of clock attempt. And then they're a finesse team too, right? So they don't get offensive rebounds. They don't get to the line. So they're at a huge shot volume disadvantage. And the only thing that they can do is shoot way over expectation to stay in this game. Now, on the other end of the court, Lipscomb's rim protection took a major hit once Faulkner went down. It's terrible. And the reason why they don't allow a high assist rate is because they play a base drop coverage, but they play a base drop rim funnel coverage with no rim protection now. So literally, Lipsy and co could spend most of their time in their downhill ball screen cutting, some transition creation. And I do think it's going to be a layup line, honestly, on that end of the court. I think they'll just blow by and overwhelm the Bison off the dribble. And look, yes, they lost to Arkansas by 16. They covered there. They won the 3-point battle by 5. That's what you got to do. They also lost to Kentucky by 30 when they lost the 3-point battle by 7. So I think Iowa State covers here more times than they don't, even without Gilbert.
T-shirt bet. Let's move on to Seattle, 2 p.m. Eastern on TBS, Colorado State, Memphis. This game will take place in Seattle, Washington. Colorado State's 1.5-point favorite here. Here's another bet I like, but I have injury questions. I think I like Memphis, but I also think Tyrese Hunter matters. Some people that I respect tell me it doesn't matter that much, but I think he does, especially on defense. But Colorado State, they are red hot. They're 8th on Torvik since February 14th. 10-0 over that span, shooting 47% from 3 and holding teams to 27.3% on high volume. So, why are they 8th on Torvik? That's part of it. By the way, Mountain West teams after San Diego State, 12-34-1 against the spread in the first round since 2009. 3-17 since 2019. They're on a 3-17 run against the number. Altitude team not playing in altitude here. Memphis just plays up in these spots. I mean, if you look, you can just keep filtering this. Memphis's rating is suppressed because they just don't show up. As they were 3-14 against the spread as favorites of 5 or more this year, which is crazy. They're kind of like the Steelers in the NFL. They show up for these big games. They can be faded as big favorites. But if you look, Memphis is 32nd versus the top 100. Colorado State is 54th. Let's keep going. Top 75. Memphis is 27th. Colorado State is 61st. How about top 50? Memphis is 29th. Colorado State is 142nd. Their defense ranks 285th in those games. Now, from an other matchup perspective, Memphis vulnerable on the offensive glass, 301st defensive rebounding, but Colorado State doesn't go after offensive rebounds. They're 279. Memphis, and because of that, why doesn't Colorado State go after offensive rebounds? Well, they get back. They don't allow you to go in transition. Memphis wants to run, but they're not as efficient running. They're better in the half court. So Colorado State's not going to exploit them on the glass where they have issues because of their aggression. And then they're going to force Memphis to operate in the half court more, which I think actually works in their favor. Memphis also has turnover issues, but the Rams don't really turn you over. They also foul too much, so Memphis can get to the line a ton. And I think Memphis can turn Colorado State over. I have a ton of respect for Nick Clifford. He could just go bananas here. So could PJ Haggerty. But, yeah, I think Memphis can play its game here. They usually play up in spots like this. There's some major regression coming for Colorado State. And I should clarify, when I say regression is coming, obviously they're shooting over their head. No one can make a three. 47% of our 10-game stretch, and the teams are shooting 27%. In a one-game sample, that means they could just continue. They could shoot. We saw North Carolina last. They could shoot 70% and they'll win. But it also, I think, in turn, there's two factors here that are inflating Colorado State's rating a bit, and it's that 3-point differential over the past month, and also how these teams perform against better teams. So the Tyrese Hunter injury, I don't think he's going to play. Probably be Okogie starting again, but Harris, maybe. Their other backup point guard who's out, maybe he plays. There's potential that he'll get in there. But I'm leaning Memphis here. Probably will have a small bet. I'll have Memphis in some form or fashion. Tanner, what are you seeing here?
I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head. I took 2.5 in Memphis. I would play it to a pick 'em. I think they win this game outright for a lot of the same reasons that you said. This Colorado State run has been great and all. This streak is insane. 47% from three while opponents are shot 27%. And I think that's a stat made more concerning when you consider the Rams will play more shell-like defense that allows a lot of triples, right? They rank 250th nationally in three-point rate allowed during the stretch, and nobody's making anything. Totally inflates your market value. And I clown Penny Hardaway all the time. I'm not a big fan of his, but it's a fact of life that you fade him as a favorite and you back him as a dog. 71 and 79 against the spread as a favorite all time, 35 and 19 against the spread as an underdog. Like you said, his team filled with athleticism and talent, they generally play up and down to competition. Their lack of execution and their failure to make the right reads in a read and react system, that shows against the dregs of the American, especially the second time teams play. But then the superstar power of PJ Haggerty shows up against the elites, And so you're right. Those two things, I think, have totally inflated the market to where Colorado State just should not be favored in this game. I don't exactly love the schematic matchup here for Memphis. I don't know. I actually think Memphis kind of thrives in those up and down circus games. You can look at what they did against UAB twice. But I do think that the Tigers' athleticism could switch all of Medved's motion actions, all of his pretty cutting and off-ball screening stuff. And I just hope that Haggerty goes nuts. But I have to take Memphis here.
You're taking a look at Mr. Haggerty.
Yeah, let's talk about Haggerty going nuts. If he scores 30 or more, you can get it at plus 650 in the market. Win or lose, he's got to shoulder the offensive load here. With no Hunter, you look at that last game against UAB, he shot it 22 times, which was 7.5 more shots than his season average. If they win the tempo battle or even draw it closer to the tempo that they want to play at, I think he's going to go north of 20 shots. Tanner just mentioned, the defensive schematics that the Rams are going to put out there and say, go ahead, beat us from three. Well, he's shooting 38% from long range this year, and no one gets to the foul line in terms of guards more in this field of 68 than Haggerty. He's averaging 8 foul shots per game, which is top 10 in the entire country. So if he knocks down 3 triples and he gets to the line on his average, then all of a sudden you're just looking at him getting 8 or 9 shots the rest of the way in hopefully, a higher tempo, higher possession, higher shot volume kind of game. I just can't pass up on this. I saw it in the market at plus 510, but then when it popped at plus 650, I think it's got to be a play for what should be a really entertaining game. And I'm hoping that if he goes off, then maybe down the road they could get Hunter back. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but just in terms of pure guard play, and it's what makes March run. It's all these amazing guard performances. I want to see this kid play as long as possible.
Yep. It should be a fun watch. One concern I do have, if it's like tight, like this game's expected to be tight, and Colorado State doesn't miss from the line, and Memphis has a bunch of guys who could miss free throws. And Danger has forgotten how to shoot free throws, and like just those possessions, those swing possessions at the end of the game, that like front ends, like Danger missing a couple front ends. Like he's like 7 of 28 over his past 4 games or something.
And you figure he'll get to the line here because Colorado State's a little undersized on the front line.
Yeah, Cisse too. He can't shoot free throws. Yep. I think he's under 50%. So that is a concern of mine because Colorado State's one of the 5 or 6 best free throw shooting teams in this field. But I do think there's some factors that do, make Memphis worth a play. But the Hunter injury complicates it. But by the way, one of the reasons why UC San Diego is one of my favorite bets of the weekend is that's the one game where like the potential factors. It's like the one side that I like where the potential other underlying factors could favor them, with Michigan potential fatigue, and they had to play Sunday. All right, let's move on to Cleveland, 3:15 Eastern on True TV. St. Mary's taking on Vanderbilt. St. Mary's 4.5-point favorite here, total 135.5. You alluded to this game earlier, Mike. I think this is a nightmare matchup for Vandy. Like everything I looked at, it was like oof, oof, oof. So Vandy wants to run. Mary's won't let you. Vandy doesn't turn it over. One of their strengths. Mary's doesn't care. They don't try to turn you over. St. Mary's can dominate on the glass on both ends, specifically offensive glass. Mary's also doesn't turn it over. That's one of Vandy's biggest strengths defensively. And then you look, like, for example, Vandy is 7th in potential points off of quick steals. First, they're actually first in the nation in second chance conversion rate. Mary's, their defense in those two categories, 11th and 1st. Vandy wants to get to the rim. Mary's 10th and 11th in near proximity attempt rate, near proximity percentage allowed. Like, so I just think they're going to get killed at the rim. Vandy's going to get killed at the rim. They have no rim protection. They're going to get killed on the offensive glass. That's where Mary's really thrives. Mary's going to control tempo. The one wild card here, like Vanderbilt could go nuts from three, but Mary's does a good job of contesting, not allowing 3-point attempts. And Vandy's not an elite 3-point shooting team. They're going to have to make some like deep threes here. The one wild card is the press. It's like Vandy does press, and they press to like an 85th percentile. They might up that here. Like Mary's press offense is not good, and they rank in the 14th percentile in efficiency. But Vandy's press isn't any good. They're in the 14th percentile. So like, but is that because they played in the SEC, and like, can their press effectively? Because I always say that you should press Mary's because their offense is so methodical, and you can just throw them off of what they want to do. And obviously, Vandy will have an athletic edge here. So, but ultimately, I think this is a bad matchup for Vanderbilt. Tanner, what say you?
I got nothing on this game. I would lean Mary's. They'll slow Vandy down and then probably keep them out of their ball screen actions, and but no interest.
Yeah, Vandy wants they're going to pick and roll heavy offense. They want to get to the rim.
Yeah,
but like,
Mary's
isn't
going to
hard to do.
Yeah,
against Mary's.
And those Byington offenses too are really spread pick and roll happy, and that's like the worst way to try and beat Randy Bennett. So lean Mary's, but no interest.
Mike, what do you see there?
Yeah, my only concern, like I mentioned, that split with Tennessee, they were successful in speeding the game up. Even though they lost one of them, they still were able to pull the balls a little bit closer to the tempo they wanted to play at, beating A&M on the road. But in terms of comps, like St. Mary's, at least analytically, really elevated. If you look at the past 6 weeks, 5th rated defense per Torvik, 2nd in the entire country in the Haslam away from home rankings. And then the head coaching matchup in terms of experience, Byington, I believe 2 NCAA tournament games, 15 for Randy Bennett. I think those things are going to matter if this is, plays out to be a lower possession crunch time game where you got to make the right decisions and have the right plays drawn up, the final TV timeout, the final minute. So 3.5, I feel, is just about right. It's a shame. I feel like if the travel was flipped and Vandy was at a disadvantage and they were playing on the West Coast, this could be closer to 2 possessions. But if I'm going to go with a side here, I'm still going to stick with SMC laying 3.5.
All right. Obviously not going to touch on Duke. They're probably going to blow out whoever they play. Injury questions with the Blue Devils worth monitoring, though. UNC Ole Miss, fascinating game, 4:05 Eastern on TNT. This game will be in Milwaukee. All right, so I think I'm going to be on Ole Miss here. Now, I am worried about UNC. UNC feels like that team. There's always a team that does this. They get in, and then they just go on a run. But UNC's favored here by 1.5. I don't think – I can't get their numbers-wise. I make Ole Miss a favorite. I might just have to – I might just have to bet Ole Miss on my numbers, and there is some looming regression here. And look, UNC, they've been great. What's been different, right? So, basically since February 11th or 10th on Torvik. So what's changed? They did make some lineup tweaks. Withers has emerged. Withers has been amazing. He basically was like nothing at one point in the middle of the season. But he's 25 and 52 from 3 over this stretch. The younger guys are playing better. But over that stretch, they're kind of like Colorado State. They shot 44.1% from 3. Over near 12% better than what they were for the whole year before February 11th. They were at 32%. So there was some, I think, looming positive regression, but obviously they're not going to keep shooting 44% from 3. Teams also are shooting over that stretch 30% from 3. A pretty high volume. And by the way, their 2-point offense and defense has gotten worse. So it doesn't make sense Like, I think a lot of this is just shooting variance going their way. Meanwhile, Ole Miss is in the opposite end of the spectrum. Since February 1st, they're shooting 32.5% from three. They were 35% prior. Teams since February 1st are shooting 38% against Ole Miss. Before that, they were shooting 29.7%. That was never going to last, but I think it's swung too far the other way. So these two teams have been polar opposite. Like, if the regression were to hit, and I think it's like just impacted the ratings of these two teams, it would be this game. Now, from a matchup perspective, Ole Miss doesn't allow you to get to the rim. They're 13th near proximity attempt rate allowed. That's where UNC wants to go. They're 9th on offense. But they force you to work in isolation. 99th percentile frequency. UNC is elite working in isolation. So that scares me. They also don't turn it over. That's what Ole Miss wants to do. They want to turn you over. Ole Miss does at least limit transition. So I think that there's enough here. Like, they don't, not going to let UNC get to the rim. They're not going to let them get in transition with the looming regression. Like, I might have to sell high on UNC, but the college basketball fan and bracket person, I mean, I know that there's always a team like this that just gets hot, sneaks in. It feels like that's UNC, but UNC, have they beat anyone yet with a pulse? Like, first the top 50 this year, Ole Miss is 23rd in the country. UNC 66th. So this comes down to, what do you believe? Do you believe UNC has changed this much, or is it a lot of shooting luck? Based on their 2-point offense and defense getting worse, I think it has a lot to do with shooting luck. But they're playing confidently. I still will take Beard over. I'll take Beard over Hubie in this as well. But feels scary. But I think I'm going to be on Ole Miss. Tanner?
North Carolina doesn't have a single win in the top 25 of KenPom. So there's that. I don't think that their offense matches up well with Beard's no middle, which, like you mentioned, just going to dribble deny RJ Davis. Ole Miss or nothing for me.
I mean, I'll tell you this. If UNC shoots 13 to 25 again, they're going to win.
I mean, Ole Miss's defense is going to give you those. But
yeah, they're going to get looks, but they're also they're shooting at an unsustainable rate,
and they're more comfortable in downhill creation, anyways.
Yeah, they want to get to the rim. That's where they want to get. They're top 10 in near proximity attempt rate, but Ole Miss doesn't let you do that. Now UNC doesn't turn it over, and they do grade out well in isolation. That's where Ole Miss makes you work. But I don't know. I think Ole Miss should be a small fave. Calabrese, are you riding the heels bandwagon?
I mean, the way I look at this, and I'll pat myself on the back in the first 4 show, I just said, I got to get out of the way of this locomotive. Now, I wasn't smart enough to jump on the bandwagon and play North Carolina, but I mean, maybe this is, semantics. It's like, they don't need to get hot. They are hot. And to be honest, if somehow, if the guy doesn't put his foot in the lane and they beat Duke in overtime, are we talking about this North Carolina team a little bit differently? They wouldn't have been on the bubble, in the same way they were conversationally going into this tournament. Maybe that's helping in terms of the chip on the shoulder element and all that. But you saw what that same Duke team did in the second half to Louisville. They absolutely fed them into the wood chipper. So I don't know. North Carolina, for me, it's a team that I cannot fade at this point. I agree, though, on the coaching element. I love Beard, and I love the no-middle defense and what it potentially could do. But just to your point, Stuck, every single year, it seems like one of these 11 seeds, they hit the play-in game, they start feeling great about themselves, they go on a run to the second weekend. This looks like them in spades right now. So I'm going to go ahead with North Carolina if I had to play it, but there's just no way I can back the Rebels.
Yeah, I'm going to be on Ole Miss. I'm probably going to be on an island. I feel like that's going to be a game where no one in the world wants to bet Ole Miss. All right, let's move on to let's head back to Seattle. Let's go out west. 4:35 Eastern on TBS, Grand Canyon in Maryland. 10.5 point favorite, total 150.5. I think this is about right, this line. Like, I don't have much here. Some people I'm seeing picking Grand Canyon as a potential upset over Maryland. I don't see that. They beat St. Mary's last year. They could out-athlete St. Mary's. I don't see that happening here. This isn't the same caliber of Grand Canyon team either. Their offense is much worse because they don't have McLaughlin. They just don't have the same spacing. They want to play super fast. They want to get to the rim. I think that'll be difficult here. Maryland's starting 5 will be significantly better than now. They won't be like intimidated, and they won't look like it's a different team. Like they can match up athletically and be on the same floor. But what I think this comes down to, turnovers. Grand Canyon turns it over too much. You might see Maryland press here. And then shooting. Like Maryland's just a much better shooting team. And I think over the course of the game, that adds up. But I'm close to market here. I will have Maryland advancing. We'll look for Maryland live if Grand Canyon gets off to a hot start. The one thing that could turn this game, in my opinion, is the whistle. Same with Drake, too. Like Missouri, very athletic, gets to the line a ton. And like Drake doesn't have any depth. They have 2 guys who lead the country 1-2 in minutes. It's like if Drake gets in foul trouble, the fall off is drastic. Same thing for Maryland. Now, Maryland does a good job of not fouling. And you might see some more zone out of Willard in this game to keep them out of foul trouble. And Grand Canyon can't really shoot. But Grand Canyon gets to the line a ton. They just recklessly attack the rim. They're top 10 in free throw attempt rate. So if this gets called tight and Maryland gets in, like Reese gets in foul trouble, Queen picks up a couple, like then Grand Canyon could win this game, could hang around, Maryland could get tight. But I think they're going to need the whistle to win this game. Calabrese, what are you saying?
Oh, give me Grand Canyon. I think this one is off by about 4 points. I would have paused if it was Maryland -7, but 10.5. Let's look at some of the key metrics from Haslam. Away from home for Maryland, 329th. Paper Tiger factor, 340th. Kevin Willard's their coach. What has he done in 18 years as a Division I coach? He's got 2 wins over 9 seeds. That's it. He lost. He came. I still can't get over the fact that year with Seton Hall, they win the Big East championship. They get shipped out west, just like this situation. They lose to the 11-seeded Zags. They get drilled by Wofford in 2019. He ends up coming to this job. I don't trust him in March whatsoever. And when you talked about Grand Canyon, they at least statistically, they're not the same team that they were last year. A big part of that, Tyon Grant Foster missed 8 games. Now that he's back, he's an absolute demon on defense. He's Mr. Stock. He could have 6 or 7 stocks in this game, a highlight reel dunk to push energy into their bench and, just the overall fight that they're going to play with in a game like this. You look at them against a more athletic team, at least on paper, in Georgia. On a neutral floor, they lost by 5, but they covered that number. Brennan and Coles, they're certainly not going to contain Derek Queen in this game or dominate him by any stretch. But I still think he can go for 20 and 10, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Maryland wins going away. So I'll take the points here for a Grand Canyon team that is not 3-point dependent. A lot of these dogs, just like my Lipscomb play earlier, I need them to hit 10 or 12 threes. I don't need that with Grand Canyon. That's an added bonus in terms of what they do usually to win games. So I'm going to go ahead and take them plus the 10.5.
I guess the bull case, Grand Canyon just can't shoot this year. Part of that is because of no McLaughlin. But they have a bunch of guys who just haven't shot how they usually shoot this year. Like Coles. I mean, Foster is never a great shooter, but he's at like 21%. Williams was at like 50% at UT Arlington last year. He's at 26. Like they're not if they want to just get to the rim, but if they like all of a sudden all that just comes back, they could be a dangerous team. But from what I've seen, the spacing just isn't great. It's not the same. But Tyon Grant Foster, yeah, it's a fun player to watch. Next level player, super athletic. All right, time for breaking the action. Let's talk about Edgeboost, which I love. If you're listening to the show, you probably like betting as much as I do. And when it comes to betting, there are 2 things I'm always trying to do: make it easier and make it more profitable. That's why I've partnered with Edgeboost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edgeboost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. Because with the Edgeboost Visa debit card, you get up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. I promise this isn't some credit card gimmick. I thought that at first, but I opened my own Edgeboost debit card account. Was so easy to deposit into all my sportsbook accounts, and there's literally no catch. There's no hidden fees. There's no minimum balance requirements. They make their money on volume. They have all relationships with books. It's so easy. You'll never have a hassle. For example, if you've ever had a casino transaction flagged by your bank because they thought it was suspicious, or you've been given the runaround when trying to fund a sportsbook account online, the Edgeboost debit card is the perfect tool to prevent all of those issues. It starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. It's why I was happy to open an account and have been happy ever since. So make your betting life easier and stop leaving money on the table. Visit Edgeboost.bet to sign up. And if you use promo code BBOC and deposit $25, you'll receive a $25 deposit match plus Tier 2 status for faster bank deposits and more cash back. That's Edgeboost.bet, promo code BBOC. All right, Norfolk State takes on Florida, 6:50 Eastern, TNT in Raleigh. No thanks. This is like the Florida's laying 28.5. I can't lay 20.5, but if they want to win by 40, they could. It could come down to late game shenanigans. Florida's just gonna. Norfolk wants to run a zone for whatever reason. Florida doesn't see a lot of zone, but their zone offense numbers are horrendous. Something worth noting. But here's the thing: Norfolk State, because of their zone, they allow you to get offensive rebounds.
Can't rebound, yeah.
And they're going up against Florida. And Norfolk State can't shoot. They cannot shoot a lick. They're one of the least 3-point reliant teams in the country because they can't shoot three. They need to score at the rim. Good luck against Florida.
All their offense is just Ings and Moore driving at the rim as fast as they can. You can't do that against Florida front line. Yeah, no way.
I could not bet Norfolk State, but I don't think I could lay 28.5. So, yeah, easy pass on the board. All right, let's move on to Troy and Kentucky, 7:10 Eastern in the Midwest Regional in Milwaukee. Kentucky, 11.5-point favorite, total 152.5. I've talked about this game before. I think it's a pretty decent matchup for Troy. Like, they're going to switch up defenses. They're going to pressure. They're going to run zone and man in the same possession. That leaves them vulnerable in the offensive glass, but Kentucky's not really a great offensive rebounding team. They do turn it over too much, but Kentucky doesn't really pressure you. The one thing that gives me pause here, and I love Connerway, their point guard, is just the shot-making differential in this game. Like, if Kentucky's making their threes, it's like, good night. As is usual the case, because Troy can't shoot. Their rim and three offense are going to shoot a ton of threes, but they cannot shoot. It's a bunch of 29% three-point shooters chucking it up. And they need to get offensive rebounds, but Kentucky's pretty good in that department. The key factor here, if I knew Lamont Butler wasn't 100% or wasn't playing, I think Troy could win this game. He's that important on the offensive and defensive end for Kentucky, and I think Troy could turn them over. That would be – so I'm trying to get more intel on his status. I expect him to play, but, like, how healthy is he? How many minutes?
That's what I've read, is that he was planning on playing.
Yeah, he's going to play.
You just don't know if he's 100%.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he's 100% and like if he's going to be a full go.
What about Robinson?
Is he playing at 80%? No, Robinson, no.
He's done. Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I lean Troy here, but it's scary because Troy's going to shoot a ton of threes and miss them, and Kentucky's going to get a bunch of threes, and the disparity is huge. Like they could just put a run on them so quick. So it might be one where I'd look to bet it live too, but I think there's some good schematic edges here for Troy. Just the shot making disparity is huge. Calabrese, what are you saying?
I know there's a big jump up athletically, pulling a team from the SEC, but Troy is fourth in offensive rebounding percentage. I don't expect them for those offensive boards to totally evaporate. Yes, the 3-point.
They'll look okay on the floor with Kentucky.
Absolutely. And defensively, they held Arkansas to 65 points, Houston to 62. I know that they are not.
The problem is they couldn't score in those games because they can't shoot.
Exactly. So at least, I can close my eyes and say to myself, could you hold Kentucky to 75 points? Yeah. And then it's just a question of, can you make 10 3-pointers? And I'm going to bet yes. I'm going to take Troy plus the points in this game. They also got super aggressive down the stretch, getting to the line at a top 10 rate. So maybe that can counterbalance a little bit if they get some whistles. You talk about it all the time, Stuck. Like, there's different crews working all these games across the country. You may get a whistle-happy crew, and that could play right into Troy's hands in a game like this and kind of offset potentially shooting 25% from downtown. If they do that, I think they can hang around. And Kentucky also, if this is close at the 8-minute timeout, the 4-minute timeout, how much stress does that go through Big Blue Nation and to these kids? I know they weren't on the floor for these upset losses in recent years, but that's got to be looming. The Oaklands, the St. Peters, like, you can't lose another one as a 14 seed where Troy's playing with house money. So I'll go ahead and take them plus the points.
Yeah, the potential villains for Kentucky and Lexington. Jackson Fields needs to hit some threes. He's been hot lately, but I think they need to get some good minutes from Cooper Campbell. He's a freshman. The defense falls off a cliff when he's on the floor compared to Rigsby. Like he's going to play like, I don't know, 20 minutes a game. You might need to up that a little bit just for his offense, sacrifice some defense. I think the defensive discrepancy is massive, but Rigsby is all defense. If Campbell comes in and hits like 5 threes, the Kentucky fans are going to be having flashbacks to Golke. What's the most threes Campbell's hitting? He went 4 of 8 against South Alabama. Just let you shoot threes. He's not like Golke. I mean, he's like a 36% 3-point shooter. But on Troy's team, that's like Steph Curry. So keep an eye out for Cooper Campbell. All right, moving on to New Mexico and Marquette, 7:25 Eastern in the South region. This, from a entertainment standpoint, I think is going to be a banger. Marquette's 3.5-point favorite, total 152.5. This game's on TBS. I think these two teams are very similar in so many different ways. Like neither turns it over. Like both teams want to turn you over, but neither team turns it over. Both teams heavy pick and roll. Both teams good pick and roll defense. Both teams want to run at times. Both teams are really good transition defenses. Like how is this decided? Like I don't trust the Mountain West, so I don't trust New Mexico, but I don't trust this Marquette team, who I think has been overvalued for months. They just haven't been right. How does this get decided? Like I think it's like who's better, Dent? Who has a better day, Dent or Jones? And it'll be fun to watch. No real feel from a side. I think this line is about right. If anything, here's the thing. Who would I want? Who would you want to face? Because I could see myself fading Michigan State with one of these two teams. Both are allow transition, but are really good in transition defense, which is important against Michigan State. I think Marquette has the higher, like Michigan State's going to get 3-point regression soon. Like someone is going to just go bananas from 3 against them. New Mexico doesn't really shoot threes. But New Mexico can compete better, I think, on the glass. Like I would worry about Marquette. I could see Marquette getting hotter from 3. Like they have some guys who can get hot. But Marquette worries me on the glass. So I don't know. Tanner, who would you rather want to fade Sparty with? Marquette or just the top of your head? Marquette or New Mexico?
New Mexico, just because Marquette is kind of broken. Like this is not look schematically. It's Marquette because you can create those catch and shoots against Michigan State, and you can shoot over the top. And Marquette's Shaka Smart's offense, like that pick and roll offense, very innovative, great way to beat that. They're just not the same team, you know. It's just like none of the pieces fit together this year. It's all Cam Jones. Like New Mexico, they're tougher. They have more ways to beat you, and their defense is really legit. So I would pick New Mexico.
But it's the Mountain West.
Yeah, I know. But how bad is the Big East, or how good is the Big East?
Yeah, I don't know.
I
think it's severely overrated. But Mike, what are you seeing here?
I'm going to go Lobos money line. I've been waiting to fade Marquette really for the past 2 months. Once I came to the conclusion that Tanner just laid out, which is I think they're broken offensively. And we've seen Cam Jones be great. He scored 27 against Creighton, and they still lost going away. So even if he has a big game, if Donovan Dent can kind of just stay within striking distance, either facilitating, scoring, I think Nelly Jr. Joseph can be a huge difference maker on the offensive glass. They can also win the shot volume battle in the turnover margin as well. And you look at Torvik since February 1st, these teams are basically mirror images. Marquette 45th, New Mexico 48th. And the last piece, and like some of these trends are meaningful. I know you can cherry pick, but there's been 6 first-round exits for Shaka Smart. I love him as an underdog. I don't love him in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I'll go Lobos money line.
I think that Marquette really misses Oso because I think he's the guy that made because he could rotate the entire offense, right? Like you could pick and roll, work through him off the short roll, and then go paint to perimeter around and around. Ben Gold is not that type of guy.
Yeah. All right, moving on. 7:35 Eastern on True TV. We have Akron taking on Arizona in Seattle. This line's sitting around 14 and a half. If you want to find, I considered Akron. My fear is that they want to run. Like Akron wants to get up and down the court. They are 16th in adjusted tempo. Like you're going to play an up and down game with Arizona is more talent, and you also can't defend at the rim. And you're going to let Arizona get in transition. That spells death sentence. Now, I do think Akron can score here. My one fear is like Akron can really shoot, which makes them a live dog. Like if they just get red hot from three, they shoot the three at a top 50 rate. They make it at a top 50 rate. And Arizona lets you shoot the three. But over the past few games, Lloyd has like played the perimeter a little more aggressively. And I think he's going to do that here. I think they're going to hedge more. And I like, they don't have to, it's not like you're playing in the Big 12. You don't have as much to worry about. So I don't know if Akron's going to be able to get off as many threes. But if you want a fun wager, so this game's at night on Friday night, parlay Akron money line and the over. Like if Akron's going to win this game, they do get red hot. They just win in the shootout. Caleb Love bad shots down the stretch, but I don't think Akron's stopping Arizona. If Akron could score enough, like they could win this game, like 90 to 88 in a thriller. So that's the path. But I just fear Akron getting into a run and gun game with a team that's way more talented, and they also can't defend at the rim, and they're probably going to get outboarded. Like that scares me. Calabrese, what do you see here?
Yeah, let's go over 166.5. Akron is going to get shredded in transition. They foul a ton. Opponents shoot 21 foul shots a game. That's 270th.
And Arizona never misses from the line.
Never missed from the line. And also, Arizona played three really fast up-tempo teams in the Big 12. UCF, Oklahoma State, Utah. They averaged 88 points per game there. This is not a repeat of the Princeton debacle where the Tigers slowed everything down. It's the opposite. In Lloyd's two other first-round matchups, as a big favorite, Arizona scored 87 and 85. I think they go for 90-plus for the 11th time this season. And Akron is, by virtue of their tempo and their shooters, I think they'll do enough to contribute to this one. I think it's going to be closer to 180 than where it's sitting right now in the market in the mid-160s.
All right, let's move on to the defending champs, UConn, taking on Oklahoma in Raleigh, the West region. 5.5 point favorites here, total 147.5. If UConn wins this game, by the way, they will set the record for most consecutive wins in the NCAA tournament since the Duke dynasty in the 90s. I mean, UConn has been absolutely incredible in this tournament. They're the first team ever to win and cover 10, 11, and 12 in a row. Hurley's 15-3 against the spread. Also, if they cover this game, they'll have 13 straight covers, which would be the most ever. They're actually tied with West Virginia right now. West Virginia between 1998 and 2008 covered 12 in a row also. I think this line's too high, to be honest. Like, I make it lower. I'm afraid a bit. Like, UConn's going to dominate the glass. Dominate the glass. They also are going to dominate. Like, Reed could have a huge day inside. Like, Oklahoma's going to offer no resistance at the rim. But, like, Oklahoma, by the way, they've been very, very good on neutral courts all year. They've been the best neutral court team in the country. Is UConn's defense really deserve to be laying this much? Like, they don't turn you over. They foul.
Can't stop the dribble. Which
Can't
is
stop the
key
dribble.
Against fears. Key against fears.
Yeah. Oklahoma has shooters. They get to the line a ton. They live at the line. They don't miss there. Neither of these teams do. I know that Godwin might not play. I don't really care. Like, he's not that important. Wagi has actually been good recently as a big, like, just to offer some rim protection in there. I know that they're still going to get killed on the glass, but I just don't trust the UConn defense. UConn will be able to score here, but I think Oklahoma can match them. This feels – I'm probably going to take Oklahoma. I also don't mind the over 147.5. Like, I just think there's many passed offense for both teams. You took Tanner. You took UConn, but you hate it.
Yeah, actually, I took UConn money line a little bit lower. I laid some juice, and I hate it. It's my least favorite bet that I'll make this entire tournament. But the reason why I took it is because I hate this Oklahoma team. I've hated them all year. They turn the ball over like crazy because Fierce is a frosh guard and makes dumb decisions, and they're the worst two-way rebounding team in the SEC. They get murdered in the shot volume battle, and I think that Oklahoma.
But UConn doesn't turn you over at all, which is helpful to Oklahoma too.
Yeah, but still, and like I think that Oklahoma's backcourt is going to get lost in Hurley's pattern motion offense, which, by the way, I thought was actually cooking in the Big East tournament. I thought that when they run the offense through Caravan, everything starts clicking and they just start working inside out, stagger screen to ball screen. And I think that that's going to put Oklahoma's guards into a twister. So I think UConn wins this game, but the line is too high now. Yeah.
Calabrese, what are you saying here?
I mean, you got SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and a huge drop off to talking Big East and ACC. I don't know what to make of that. Obviously the conferences themselves aren't playing, but it's got to count for something. My knee jerk is to go with UConn, and I do agree that they're going to kill them on the glass. They've been missing a Cam Spencer for the entire season. He's not walking through that door. So I think they'll win. It'll be sweaty. I wouldn't feel comfortable laying the points. It's a stay away from me.
Oklahoma hits their threes here. They can win this game, but if they don't, they're in trouble. Like Connecticut's just going to get so many easy buckets. But the Oklahoma just might whistle's important here. Like if they're calling it tight, because the Oklahoma could just live at the line. This Connecticut defense, it's really troubling when you foul a ton, which Connecticut does, and you don't get turnovers. Like that, both of those things shouldn't be true. They're 291st in turnover percentage and 333rd in free throw attempt rate allowed. So could be a lot of avenues to offense for both teams. All right, let's move on to – I think I'm going to have UConn advancing, though. But I do not think that they can beat Florida. Might be a trendy bet for some. Actually, I don't know. Florida's like as juiced as they'll ever be in terms of perception and people loving them. I'm curious to see what would happen if Connecticut played Florida. Like everyone loves Florida right now, but it's like say Hurley covers again. They've won 13 in a row. They've covered 13 in a row. What do you think? Like, what do you think most people would bet in that scenario? What do you think, Tanner?
Florida?
Yeah, I think people are ready for Florida.
Yeah, everyone's flocking to them after the SEC tournament. Yeah. They look dominant. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I think you might still get some people that are like, nope, Hurley and this UConn team are back. Like, say they blow out Oklahoma.
Well, blowout, yes, because then I think it shifts the narrative. If they win by 7 and they grind a game out on the offensive glass, I don't think they're going to win over a lot of people kind of on the fence. They're going to have to play really well and have a breakout performance, probably from Solo Ball. If he goes for 25 points and knocks down 6 triples or something like that, then I think you start to get the casual betting public back on their side a little bit.
Yeah, I do not. I don't see any chance that UConn can beat Florida. I shouldn't say any chance, but I just that their defense is going to get wrecked, right?
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Liberty, Oregon. I don't know. I think Oregon might be too much size, too much athleticism. Like it's kind of like Lipscomb and Liberty. Now Oregon won't pressure you as much, but they'll change up their D. It's hard for me to see Liberty get many stops. Also, they're headed out. The travel isn't ideal for Liberty. Now they get some extra time, but this game's in Seattle. That doesn't help their cause. Oregon's a 7-point favorite here, total 139.5. I think the line's about right. Afraid for Liberty though. Now they can always have an alley or shooting day, and they can shoot, but I don't know they're going to get stops. And the athleticism and size differential is big here. But you're looking at the Flames, Mike.
I am. I like what they have defensively, in terms of if you go by at least Evan Mia's defensive impact, Owen Aquino and Zach Clevelander, Cleveland. I think they're both top 5 in terms of Conference USA defensive impact. And yes, they're undersized, but I think this is really where this game swings. If Biddle continues to play out of his mind, being such a versatile big, being able to take people out to the 3-point line, I think that I agree with you that it would be a long night for the Flames. But I just like what they've done throughout the course of the season. They beat K-State, they beat McNeese, both top 70 teams in Ken Pom. They got elite shooting both inside and outside. They don't turn the ball over. And Oregon, it's just a matter of who you think this Oregon team is. They went through that 1-6 skid in the middle of conference play, and they pulled out of it. But I don't necessarily see a huge double-digit runaway win for the Ducks. This Ducks team, I think, is a little bit more interesting in the round of 32, where Altman's on a short turnaround, and that's really where he flexes his muscles. His staff are so good at confusing teams, game planning, and also presenting different defensive looks that make it almost impossible to game plan. Liberty's had this extra time to put it together. So for a low major like this, that's 77th in offense, 48th in defense, I don't think they're going to be totally outclassed. It's close to a lean, maybe an official play for me on the Flames, but I'll take the points.
All right, finally, let's move on to the American special with Tanner here. 10 p.m. Eastern on TBS at Rocket Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. Michigan State 17.5-point favorite, total 152.5. My quick thoughts on this game, is Bryant rated so well because they use their uber athleticism and size, and when you look at these two teams, they're not going to look different. And they rated well because they just use that to overwhelm teams in the NEC. Or will that help them equal the playing field? Now, I kind of lead to the former because anytime Bryant has stepped up in class the past 2 years, they've gotten curb stomped, destroyed, which scares me to death. Then what that means is when they step up in class, then that athleticism, that's usually their edge. And now it's not. I mean, just going back to last year, they lost by 32 to Cincy. They lost by 17 to Ole Miss, who wasn't that great last year. They lost by 25 to Xavier, who also wasn't that great. Earlier this year, I know Tanner's going to point to injuries, but they lost by 66 to Grand Canyon or something, 56 or 48, something crazy. They lost by 22 to St. John's. Now, I think they can hang around for a half with their athleticism. The scary thing is they want to get up and down. They want to get on the offensive glass. Can they get on the offensive glass here against Michigan State? It's going to be tougher. And because of that, they're going to let Michigan State run. That's a disaster. You want to make Michigan State operate in the half court. But I think they can hang around for a half. Michigan State has these lulls in the first half. Where Michigan State excels is just with their depth. They put it on you in the second half. And that will be super, super evident here because Bryant, 338th in bench minutes. Michigan State, 16th. So I fear that Bryant will eventually wear down. I think I'm going to be on Bryant first half, though. But I fear that Michigan State will put a couple runs on them in the second half. There might be some foul trouble. Michigan State is due for, someone's going to go nuts from three, but that's not really Bryant's game. Maybe because they won't be able to get to the rim as easy. They're going to shoot more threes. They don't shoot a ton of threes. Is this a game where Pinzone makes 8 threes? Maybe then Bryant, it could become interesting. Tanner?
Last time talking America East ball on the pod for the year, so I'll give you a
Whoa, you're not calling for the hour?
No. So I'll go on a little monologue about the Bryant Bulldogs. Get ready to learn some Earl Timberlake, folks. You hit on a lot of the same points that I will. On one hand, it seems like Bryant is a team built to make a Cinderella run, right? They have the size, athleticism, length. They have almost more than any mid-major squad. They're 6th nationally in average height. No starter stands under 6'6". They just are filled with elite two-way wings. Conference Player of the Year, Earl Timberlake. He's the best do-it-all, two-way point forward east of UC San Diego. Newcomer Conference Player of the Year, Barry Evans, crushes the boards, explosive off the bounce. Connor Withers, excellent 3-and-D wing. Rafael Pinzone, elite shot creator and shooter, from deep. The center rotation of Keyshawn Mitchell and Kayvon Kramer, super bouncy, and Mitchell is playing out of his mind right now. All of these guys can handle the rock, take you off the bounce, dish the rock, defend one-on-one, block shots, and most of them can shoot. And Phil Martelli
Great switchability.
Yeah, Phil Martelli Jr. has done a great job of leveraging the athleticism and length into those right ways. verticality, and switchability. In the shot volume battle, they dominate because they obliterate the offensive boards and they never turn it over. On defense, like you mentioned, they switch everything and then iso funnel into this massive drop defense where then everyone paint swarms and blocks shots. On offense, they leverage kind of dribble handoffs and then mismatch hunt and isolation, and they can get out in the open court a lot and leverage that athleticism and speed. In this matchup against Sparty, there's a lot to like, actually. Michigan State is super rim reliant both ways. Izzo-led teams like to play up and down. So Bryant can play its game here, right? Fast pace, defend at the rim, attack off the bounce. Furthermore, like you mentioned, Michigan State is due for all sorts of negative shooting regression on defense. They allow
offense
threes.
too. They've been shooting better.
Yeah, they allow threes in mass, but conference opponents haven't hit. They're awesome in their closeouts, but opponents still shot like 28% on catch and shoot jumpers against them. Bryant doesn't like to shoot threes much, but they have shooters, right? Pinzone is elite. Withers can pull up. Evans could be in for a big day. But Keyshawn Mitchell, the center guy, he's the difference maker here. Part of his ascension in playing so well recently is that he's been able to stretch the floor and start to hit threes, which is huge as a big man because it opens up spacing for the Bulldogs, who often drive into crowded lanes and then take pull-ups and stuff. If you can space the floor even more, the lanes open up. He's 6 for 11 from deep over his past 6 games, averaging 15, 12, and then 2.5 stocks per game over that stretch. Changes everything for their offense. And then finally, as mentioned, Bryant is going to switch everything and isolation funnel you. Sparty is not comfortable in ISO creation. I think 2 possessions per game, 7th percentile, 0.54 points per possession. It's 362nd nationally. Now, on the other hand, Michigan State does everything Bryant does, but better. They dominant two-way rebounding team. They own the rim on both ends of the court. The last time Bryant played a team like that, St. John's crushed them in the rebounding and turnover battle in a 22-point win. Granted, Earl Timberlake was not available, but
they hung for a half.
They did hang for a half. And again, Izzo and Michigan State probably wins the transition battle. He's a great two-way transition coach. Sparty is fantastic creating in transition. They're awesome in transition denial. Bryant is good in transition defense, but bad in transition denial because all they do is run up and down. And they are super inefficient in transition efficiency. They're actually better in the half court, especially since PMJ has started working through floppy and curl sets in the latter half of conference play. I still don't trust Bryant's offense in the half court. Too many mid-range runners and hook shots.
They take a bad shot.
Yeah, and Michigan State...
they need to get offensive rebounds. Can they do that here? That's the key.
And Michigan State, they're an elite dribble handoff defense. They'll switch every action, not allow really any mismatch hunting from Bryant. Michigan State can also play their game, basically. I think that results in Bryant just getting leaned on eventually. And Sparty also, they finally have a go-to guy, one-on-one shot creator in Jace Richardson. He's the guy that can beat Bryant's defense. Crafty guards at UMBC this year were really the only guys who gave Bryant's defensive scheme a lot of fits. What does this all mean? There's only 2 ways I could bet this game, if at all. First, under, as gross as it is, because the pace is going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. But the way I look at it, Michigan State should be able to play transition denial against Bryant's inefficient transition attack. Hopefully that slows the pace a bit. Michigan State's going to switch everything against the DHO actions, force Bryant into their old tricks, which is getting caught up in inefficient high paint shots. Bryant is going to ISO funnel Michigan State. I think there's only so much that Jace Richardson can do. Hopefully they cancel each other out on the boards. And for what it's worth, projections are like 5 points lower on the total than the market is. The market's 152. KenPom's 149. Haslametrics, Evan Meyer, 147. Sean Kerner, our guy, is 147. I don't know what you're at, Stuck, but I'm curious at some point. The second one, 149, yeah. The other one is
scary.
Yeah, Bryant first half. Breeze thinks he's going to storm out of the gates, as he'll mention. Stuck likes Bryant first half. I think Sparty gets shocked by the pure size and physicality of this mid-major squad. St. John's was earlier this season. That was a 4-point game and a half. I think Bryant hits a few early triples. I think Pinzone and Keyshawn Mitchell especially. And Michigan State, slow starters, figure out in the second half, and they will eventually lean on Bryant in the second half. I think that's what happens here. And it's been a great season of American East ball, but this is the end of the road.
Maybe there's one more. You never know. There's always an upset no one sees coming. Calabrese, you gotta bet in the similar vein.
Yeah, two different angles here. First to 15, go with Bryant plus 230 on the money line. And if they get up, let's call it 15-9, then go ahead and hammer Michigan State on a discounted number to cover a spread. And one of the reasons why I like Bryant, that we've covered it all in this one, but they're 33 nationally in kill shot ratio. So they can go on runs, and they've done a decent job of limiting runs from their opponent. So I could at least see if we get some 3-point luck early. Plus 230 is the kind of number that entices me, anything north of 2-1. And then, like I said, then flip it on over and hit Sparty at a discounted number.
Hey, Cowboys, what's your final four?
My final four is Duke, Tennessee, St. John's, Auburn, and Auburn over Tennessee in the Natty.
Rick Barnes. All right. By the way, my brackets, the contest at the minute, either if it depends on if it's high stakes or how many people there are in the stakes. But I'm knocking out Michigan State. Like, I'm not having them go to the Elite Eight. I'm knocking out St. John's. I'm not having them go to the Elite Eight. My stances are Texas Tech to the Final Four, Iowa State knocking off Michigan State, but I don't know. With the Iowa State questions, I'm still going to have Auburn going to the Final Four. There's Auburn, Texas Tech. Going to have Duke going to the Final Four. And then I think in your bracket, like, those are the stances you take. Like, just, hey, Florida. All these people choosing Florida, Michigan State, St. John's. Betting against that happening. I'm doing that in all of my contests. And then I think the Midwest, you have some fun. I'm in my super huge pool. I'm going with Illinois. Like, if you just need to differentiate yourself, but they could lose in the first round, either Texas or Xavier, which aren't the best matchups. I think they're going to get by, but it's going to be iffy. So if you want to go chalkier, then maybe you go Houston if you're in a smaller pool. But I think you can get a little weird in the Midwest. But I'm going Texas Tech, Duke, Auburn, higher stakes pool with a lot of people. I'm going Illinois, taking a shot. You could even do Kentucky.
Give me Xavier.
And then you're taking,
Xavier.
Tanner's rolling with Xavier.
They're going to lose tonight now.
Hopefully weird happens, because I have futures on Clemson and Illinois down there. So I don't mind them that they're there. But all right, that'll do it for us. Thanks to Tanner and Mike for joining me. Thanks to our producer on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Check out the Thursday episode if you haven't already. Enjoy the madness, best time of the year. Good luck in all of your contests, brackets, all of your bets. We'll have a lot more content coming next week for when we'll have live shows coming up. We'll have, obviously, Sweet 16 podcast. We'll record next Tuesday. But thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, tell a friend. Tell an enemy, you know the deal. Leave a 5-star review. Really helps us out. Enjoy the madness. We'll catch you all over the weekend. Cheers.